Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's special council meeting on October the 30th, 2023. Individuals interested in participating in this meeting were able to register online using the delegation registration form at www.kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. Any written comments received prior to the commencement of this meeting have been circulated to members of council and will form part of the public record. The meeting live stream and archived videos are available at www.kitchener.ca/watchnow. Before we begin this evening's meeting, we'd like to acknowledge that this evening we're gathering on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I believe there are some for the in-camera session. Yep. Okay, I'll come back to that if it's for the in-camera session. Just before we go into delegations, I'd like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting, interrupting the mayor or councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about the mayor, councillors, staff, or others, and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations, please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from our community members. We'll begin by going to unfinished business, and this is pertaining to the zone change application for 83 to 87 Weber Street East by Brigade Holdings Corporation. We have one delegation, Mr. Stephen Litt from Vive Development. Welcome, Mr. Litt.
Good afternoon. I'm just here for questions.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, there not being any, Mr. Litt, I'm just wondering if you can speak to how you've addressed or rectified the concerns that have been addressed by staff or that were raised by staff previously.
Fair question. We'll start with, this is not typically the correct approach, recognizing this is atypical. Going forward, we will not take this negotiation on the stand type scenario. We understand the tall building guidelines. In this specific circumstance, we've modeled looking at all the neighbors and the land assemblies, and we believe that neighboring parcels can be built with other high-rise housing developments without any adverse impact. So we're committed to building a beautiful design through the holding provision for urban design at the end of the day through site plan. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. There are other questions. Councillor Clancy.
This is more for staff, I think, or could be for you as well, Mr. Litt. I did have a neighbor who reached out concerned because they have a heritage property that's next door in close proximity, and given, you know, the infrastructure that's involved in the tower, they were worried about the integrity of their building being affected. Is there any way to consider that? Yeah,
we'd reached out as a follow-up to the folks at CAN Immigration, so I had a couple of phone calls and sent sort of a terms of reference for how through the construction progress we'll hire a third-party engineer to assess the condition of their house before construction and then after, and then we're on the hook for any damage that are caused. So we do this in all of our projects, pretty standard.
Okay,
yep.
Glad that you've made the effort to you know, deal with those concerns. Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, just wanted to clarify with you, Mr. Litt, if I could, while you're up, on the changes. So can you remind us how many affordable units, if we approve the higher density?
26, so 25% of all the additional suites.
25%, and that's 26 units, great. And From the original increased density proposal we saw at council, you have increased the setback on, there's one narrow area, and I believe it was 2 meters, and now it's increased to 5 meters?
Believe so, roughly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And last question, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see the breakdown of the new units, because it looks like you added proportionally fewer one-bedroom than you have 2 and 3, so I want to make sure I'm reading the numbers correctly. Of the 100 new units, only 35 will be one-bedroom. Looks like 51 will be two-bedroom, and not only did you put all of the original 3-bedroom units back on the table, you're adding an extra one in those 100
Correct.
units. Okay, thanks. Just wanted clarification on those. Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Questions about the setbacks and the changes from the initial proposal, and something that's more closer to in line with the tall building separation guidelines try to recommend. Also, your consideration of the 26 units. So those 26 units weren't a part of the initial proposal that you guys had added. That was with the commitment to build 26 units that would be affordable for 25 years?
20.
20 years, okay.
Yep.
So you said the average market rent per each unit is approximately what?
Well, right now it's 2,200. The way things are going, I believe it has nowhere to go but up. But right now, $2,200, and our commitment is to keep them 20% below that.
So 2,200 at 20%. That's about $440 per month per unit.
Yep.
So that would be on the 25 units, approximately a cost to, once the building is built out, about $11,000 for per month, multiplied by over 12 months. So approximately $132,000 of a cost as to market over the 20 years. That is a overall cost of $2,640,000
Yep.
over a 20-year span. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, when it's wonderful, and we've even come to council before for cash and kind donations, but the long-term cash impact, income impact is considerable, right, on a rental project. The energy upgrade from sort of standard to what we're proposing at the 40% of National Building Code savings is about $1.8 million of incremental cost as well. So.
Yeah, and the reason why I did that calculation, it was a surprise to me too when I had initially done it. I wanted confirmation in case I was doing it wrong, because the number seemed so large. It's so easy for us to hear from you, 26 units, for us to ask easily of you, hey, why can't you create the 26 units? But over the duration of the 20-year commitment, which I hope that will be in line and they will stay the duration, is going to be a cost or benefit back to the community of $2,600,000.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councillor Schneider, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks again for coming in and for bringing this forward. I want to say I appreciate how Vibe has, when they've got approval, they've gotten shovels in the ground quickly. I just wonder if you could maybe give us kind of a recap. I mean, I off the top of my head, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, I'm thinking of your projects, Spadina and Highland, Borden Avenue, Queen Street, David Street, the additional units you put in when you did the refresh on your building on McGee Avenue. Do you have any idea, sorry this is a tough question, but of the average time it takes for you from getting approval, shovel in the ground, to completion?
So yeah, by the time from the time you commit to buying a piece of land to it being completed and fully leased, I would say is 4 to 5 years. Okay. And we move faster than just about everybody else, I like to think.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to compliment you and on your record on getting things done after approval, because sometimes we see big pauses. And how soon do you think you can maybe start a shovel in the ground if we approve?
We already have a record of site condition for this. We got it up to about 2 months ago, so it is our hope in the very volatile framework we have today of Housing Accelerator Fund and CMHC and all the various flaming hoops we need to jump through, that we could break ground on this next year. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's worth noting that a lot of what developers do and should do is really alignment of government incentives and programs to build these projects. And We work tirelessly to try and align the region, the city, the province, and the Fed, and that's what we're effectively doing here, which I think is a win for everybody. So there are a number of things that we're going to issue a white paper to staff and council, what we think can try and get the housing supply system back on track in the next couple of years. So it's pretty dire out there.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, maybe just the last question that I want to ask you, Mr. Litt, is just in terms of the separations. I know you made some movement to adjust them, but they're not back to where they were. So when we look at the percentages of compliance, it's not, you know, even the first proposal, which was recommended by staff, didn't meet that, but you know, it was in the spirit of moving forward, particularly at a time when we have a housing crisis. You did make some movement on those, but you weren't able to get them to where the existing ones are. Wondering if you can talk a little bit about the rationale behind that.
What would be helpful is I have a slide we could pull up.
Okay.
If
We can ask
it was
the clerk
queued
to
up.
help on that.
Thank you. So we totally respect tall building guidelines. So the intention is to build good buildings that don't look in each other's windows, don't adversely impact your neighbor's opportunity to develop. And so what we often do, and we did between in the past 2 weeks, was sort of illustrate how we think this neighborhood is going to develop. There's a lot of moving parts, but we looked at. So if I'm standing on our properties at Weber Street towards that would be the Cedar facade. So that 2+ acres was marketed for sale last year. So it looks like all of that's been consolidated. So we looked at a 2-tower site there and placed the towers accordingly. We looked to the other direction towards Scott Street, which we have the neighboring house under conditional purchase contract. We're working on something there. And then further towards Scott Street, there's another land assembly. So we placed another tower. And so we designed it so that, and again, all similar densities to what we're proposing here today. And our team, Pierre at MHBC, our architects, we all agree that it's doesn't impact what can be built. In the end of the day, I don't think 2 meters in a housing crisis is really going to adversely impact. All of our projects to date, new construction, all 8 of them have been slabs, which a number of them have been nominated for Urban Design Awards. So slabs can be done beautifully, and it is a way that we can deliver housing more cost effectively, which is what we're doing here today. So.
Just waiting for your picture to pop up.
I beat the computer leg.
Do you want to just comment on it now that it's in front of us?
Yeah, so you can see the green, light green, top left is the existing 12-story building. The building to the right of that, you can see the line sort of delineating the mid-rise portion and the high-rise portion. So you see that the high-rise portion of that building doesn't overlap ours. You see subject property, and then to the page right, you see the 2 towers on the large land assembly that was offered for sale that those folks have been working together to find a buyer for. And of course on Duke Street, a lower rise building to preserve, because that's sort of the official plan, the market district, addressing that's sort of where there's a church and a racket club. And again, like, this is all hypothetical, but we do this to show that what we believe we want to build today is supportable and good for the community. So.
Okay. Thank you. There don't appear to be any other questions of you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Questions of staff. Councillor Davey. We can leave this graphic up for now. Sorry? Oh, it's stuck? Well, that's good, because that way we'd leave it up anyway. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, no questions of staff at this time. I'm prepared to move the more dense 32-story revision, and the bylaw or the additional wording is in an email that was forwarded to us.
Okay, we do have some questions. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, to staff, you're recommending that we not approve these additional stories for this project?
Mr. Stevenson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff are confident in the recommendation outlined in the staff report that was presented on October 2nd for the reasons outlined in my email of Friday. We remain committed to that recommendation, and we feel it is a good balance of interests. It still allows for additional housing and is more compliant to the tall building guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Councillor Clancy, question? Go ahead.
Can you,
Oh, turn yourself back on. Sorry, go ahead.
can you elaborate on kind of the data that you shared about the compliance regarding the tall building guidelines? Do you mind elaborating on what makes you hesitate or?
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have an urban design manual that we apply when we review development applications. Included in that manual is a council-approved document called Tall Building Design. And what that document looks to do is to provide guidelines which are flexible that we can apply on a case-by-case basis to evaluate the appropriateness of a tall building based on the local context. So all of that is to say we have a guideline to ensure that a tall building on a single site is not going to jeopardize the ability to have development adjacent or on a adjoining parcel so that it doesn't frustrate further development within the block. What we look to do is apply those guidelines for each development at the time that they're being considered. So in this case, the original proposal that was presented on October 2nd was between 63 and 72% compliance with the tall building guidelines. Our target is always 100%. We understand their site-specific context for this particular location, including its proximity on Weber Street and the depths of lots. So we thought we were being flexible in affording a 63 to 72 compliance on the tall building guidelines. And that's to ensure that the towers are adequately separated from other buildings and that people who are living in those buildings have a high quality of life and they're not looking out their balcony at another adjacent tower. Well, this would be the first tower on this block, or maybe the second one. 63 Scott is 11 stories. It's important that we plan and we think about the full future development of the block. And although I appreciate that Mr. Litt has proposed a hypothetical situation here, we can't assume that any of those decisions that would afford that hypothetical scenario could actually come to fruition. So we have to look at the context of each building and the adjacent properties to ensure that they will have development potential as well. So council can approve the revised taller concept should they choose. We're just flagging that the revised concept, because the separation is measured by the percentage of the overall height, the new building is only 23 to 43% compliant. So that's 25% of the target, and it doesn't even meet half of the target. We feel that the 25-story proposal does achieve our housing objectives, and it does allow for a greater flexibility for other properties that are adjacent to redevelop over time as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson, you have questions? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. So, Mr. Stevenson, the opinion that you came back with then was based on the information from October 2nd. So it does not include this new piece then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have looked at a few proposals for this site. Through the review of the development application, we reviewed the concept that was presented on October 2nd. Council may recall immediately before the council meeting following, we received a revised concept in the bylaw during the meeting. We did have significant concerns about the 2-meter setback. That has been revised with the proposal that was emailed on Friday. I think that's either the third or the fourth concept. This drawing in front of you here, the 32-story building in pink, I assume is representative, but it includes lands that aren't subject to this application, and it's not the development concept that we reviewed on Friday. So I quickly looked at this block concept, but I can't give much additional thought to that. The bylaw, the revised bylaw that was attached in the email, it represents the third development concept that was provided by email as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. When was the tall building guidelines approved by council?
They were approved in 2017 and revised with our urban design manual updates in 2019 and 2020.
Right. And at those times, were we aware that there was a housing supply crisis in Ontario, Canada?
We certainly knew that we need additional housing supply, but that was before that we had identified a housing crisis.
Right, thank you. And I'm supportive of those tall building guidelines, but they are guidelines. And I guess I'm just curious, I've always seen them as ideal. Perhaps I've mistaken that in terms of, certainly from staff's position, but I'm curious in the more dense cities of the world, like a New York City or Boston, et cetera, how many of their urban cores would be compliant with our tall building guidelines?
Through the mayor, I don't have an answer specifically on that. When we developed our guidelines, we looked at other urban examples in Ontario and Canada of cities that are similar size to ours.
Okay. Can you comment anecdotally?
No.
Okay. I'm also trying to understand the flexibility. So perhaps I shouldn't compare apples and oranges, but we've got another application coming for 417 King this evening, and two of those, there's a zero setback for two of those. One is our own park, I believe, and the other one is on Halls Lane, which I believe, which I believe is Halls Lane, which is I did a quick check and it's less than 8 meters wide and backs onto a parking lot. I'm unsure the ownership of that lot. I don't think it's ours, but it might be. I guess my point in this is there not some flexibility for council in terms of what these guidelines are?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so there is certainly flexibility, and the proposal that's coming later this evening, we did evaluate based on the site-specific criteria. So a wide, shallow block that backs onto a public lane, but also on that block, One Victoria has been redeveloped, and there is a tower separation that's quite small. So that tower was located closer to the green in order to have maximum tower separation between 30 Francis, which is currently under construction, as well as One Victoria. That would allow for the remaining lot, which is the U-Haul, to also be built with the tower.
Right. And is the parking lot in behind, is that U-Haul's?
It is.
Okay. Just curious about that. Thank you.
Councillor Singh, do you have a question?
Yeah, kind of on a similar approach, and then I just have comments afterwards, Mr. Mayor. Again, through Councillor Davies' questions, we've already addressed that this is a guideline. It doesn't need to be absolutely prescriptive, but it should be in the interest of good building design. And building design does matter. And so, Mr. Stevenson, looking at what the proposal is, it's a wide building footprint envelope. A lot of the units would be, I guess, viewpoint would be either Weber Street or in the rear, where there is more appropriate setbacks. So do we take that into consideration, where the flexibility is more so being sought on the sides, where there is limited units?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so it was important to have a rear yard setback here because given the lot configuration, we assume that we'll see some sort of redevelopment on Duke Street, especially because there are two larger pre-consolidated parcels there, one being a church and one being a racquetball club that we see potentially redeveloping over the life of our official plan in the next 25 years. So that's why this building is located closer to Weber Street to allow for that separation. The potential for a tower, there would be potential for one or two on Cedar Street and then one or two in between on Weber Street. What we don't want to do is we don't know what development interest is there. We don't know who has consolidated and what we can potentially see. So by being as close as possible to the guidelines on each lot, we don't have to hypothesize or worry that we might get it wrong on a future development application site. If we protect for it on all sites, they will be able to develop to their full potential as well.
No, and I appreciate that, but really where I was trying to relay the emphasis of my question is, do we take into consideration where the number of percentage units on each floor footplate that are actually, would be impacted by that significantly reduced site setbacks that are being requested, as opposed to where now, again, looking at the building design, majority of the units seem to be facing either Weber Street or the rear, where there isn't necessarily a concern about sightlines.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's something we'll look at, and in either case, whether it's the original proposal or the revised, we are recommending a holding provision for an urban design review. That'll allow us to finalize those details. Window and balcony orientation and placement does help to reduce overlook as well, so that's another technique we can use, and we will employ that as part of the site plan review process.
So we do have tools if this committee and the council does endorse the applicant's revised application or proposal, staff would still have tools at their disposal to ensure that we still maintain that good urban design.
We have additional urban design guidelines that we'll continue to rely on as part of the site plan review process.
Good, thank you. Do you want me to go into my comments now or just keep back in?
Sorry, Councillor David, you moved this, correct? Actually, no, this is coming from planning. So, Councillor Singh.
It's moved by me and seconded by Councillor Chapman.
Okay. Go ahead with your comments.
Yeah.
And then others can cue.
I think I've already kind of made part of my motion. To be honest, I don't want this committee or to be seen that we are in conflict with our staff. That's not the case. Our staff have put forward a very good recommendation of an application that was initially submitted. I think it already gave flexibilities initially to allow for the height that was requested and the number of units that were requested. And I think the application, with their intent, put their best foot forward in giving that ultimate design what was submitted to staff for their original review. But in keeping of the realities of today's world, which has changed a lot, it changes month by month. Our legislation is requiring us to change and evolve on a month-to-month basis as well. There has been, I guess, a market transition over the year, the time that it takes for this application to meet all its requirements before it's deemed approved, that the developer has sought that there is an avenue where they can provide community benefit. But of course, that comes at a cost. And that cost, I want to remind my colleagues in the committee, and for any media that ends up being reported on this, I was incorrect. It's not $2,640,000. It's in fact $2,745,000. My apologies, I'm shortchanging you by a little bit. That is a significant amount, $2,745,000 over a 20-year duration. Just to give some context to this, and I think rightly so, just last year we were grateful and privileged that the Schlegel family donated significant funds to our Southwest Park. And in keeping of that recognition, we named the park after their name. And it's for a certain duration period of time. And we celebrated it because it's a community benefit, and rightly so. Now we have an opportunity to almost receive the same amount of that monetary benefit back to this community. It's not a park. It's not where everyone will be able to enjoy, rich and poor. Here is a benefit that will be only enjoyed by those that need it the most. It may not benefit you and I, but it's going to benefit families that need it the most. So it's still that recognition of that amount, the recognition of that give back to this community is no less, it's no different. It's $2,700,000 and some change, almost close to what the Schlegel family had given. As much as we appreciate them, I think we need to appreciate what the developer is proposing and wanting to give back to this community. And if that means a little extra height and more units, I think we have to help them to develop their business case to continue giving back to this community.
So just to be clear, Councillor Singh, I'm not looking to get into a debate with you, but there's a very big difference between a policy decision we're making tonight on a planning application, and there's pros and cons to what we're debating tonight. Happy to have that discussion and debate. Very different than a philanthropic gift that's happening, that it's one of several that we've had at the city, and I don't think we should be comparing them because they're two very different things. Councillor Davey, you're next.
Yes, first a point of clarification, if I could. I'm trying to recall, but I believe there was no motion coming out of Planning Committee. I thought it was deferred both times, in which case my motion would take precedence. I guess I'd ask the clerk to confirm that.
I mean, our normal practice would be to go to the chair of the committee.
If there was a motion, right, but if it was deferred, and I'm happy to, if Councillor Singh wants to move it, that doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure that that's voted on first. Otherwise, I think we get in a sticky situation where we vote on the original recommendation first, which I don't think was ever moved.
Sorry, I presumed he is moving the reworded one is what I took it as. Councillor Singh, can you clarify which motion you've moved?
I think the interest of Councillor Davey, the staff report is what's being brought forward, and any amendments would be thereafter. So I would be moving the staff recommendation, and then there would be any amendments that would be required on top.
That's fine. Then,
Okay, clarification then too, is this, all right, I'm just trying to understand if this counts as an amendment. And does the chair de facto have to move the staff recommendation if it was deferred? I don't think so, because I think it would complicate the vote. But
so
anyway, I can make my comments while you guys.
I will take that as the moved one. Yours is the amendment with the changes, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's fine.
With the added clause that staff would require us to add. Mr. Stevenson, can you remind us what that clause is?
I have it somewhere here. Actually, Mr. Stevenson, if you have it handy.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Through you, Mayor, to add the clause that pursuant to Section 3417 of the Planning Act as amended, further notice is not required to be given in respect to zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 23022 WCD.
Okay, thank you. And that's exactly what I heard Councillor Davey say. Councillor Davey, you have the floor.
Comment, thank you. I want to start by, again, apologizing to, especially to our planning staff, for, this is, I think, the third time I've done this to them, and I know it's no small amount of work to turn on a dime like this, but what I won't apologize for is what the outcome is. It might sound strange to see this, but I actually agree with our planning staff. They brought forward advice in their professional capacity, and I agree with their advice in their professional capacity, but I think our council has the ability to consider broader implications than just the planning policies before us. So I think we can both be right, frankly, in terms of where we go here. I hate to use the term no-brainer, but I mean, if you look at this in isolation, what we're really contemplating here is you can think of it almost as an individual tower with 100 units. And 26% of those units will be CMHC affordable, and more than half of them will be more than one bedroom, which is pretty much unheard of in recent developments, especially in high-rises. The developer, most importantly, is planning on breaking ground next year, when we're hearing many other developments are going to be 3, 4, 5 years out. And lastly, and not least, they've made a commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas for the entire building, not just this additional. I think this is a win-win-win. I 100% understand this is not the preferred process going forward. We're having discussions on that. But at the end of the day, if you, I guess the analogy is, if you don't look how the sausage is made, I think this is a fantastic outcome for the residents of our community.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, can I ask the clerk a logistics question? So we have an amendment to the motion. I would like to support the original motion, but does that mean I should vote against the amendment and against the amended motion? Like, how can I make sure that my position is clear?
Through the chair, if and when the amendment is voted on, you would just vote no, and then you would have an option to decide whether or not you feel like the planning application should then be approved. So it will be amended if the amendment vote carries. So it is up to you then to decide whether or not you think the application then needs to be approved.
Okay, so are we on comments or questions?
We're on questions. Sorry, we're on comments.
Comments. So I can't accept the amendment for a number of reasons. First, because as we saw today, the province itself is bringing in a new amendment to the affordability question. This will change things dramatically as well, potentially. I mean, we still don't know all the guidelines, but even the province is saying that this 80% of market value is not affordable. So, you know, this game we're playing about, you know, we've got all these affordable units. Well, I don't know who they're affordable for. I also do not accept the way this has all come about. And in fact, I feel embarrassed that this is even happening as a city councillor when we've got, it's not so much for me about the tall building guidelines, although certainly from a staff perspective, I understand how that's a consideration and an important one. But to me, it's about procedure. We've left the public out of this discussion, and you could say, well, no, we deferred and they could be here today. Well, that's not how this works. Public engagement is something that we take very seriously, and I think that, you know, we shouldn't be, this isn't a game for me, and I don't like the way that this has happened, so I cannot accept the amendment.
Okay, Councillor Chapman, I think it's fair for us to agree and disagree. I would ask that we do it respectfully, and suggesting that something is a game is not necessarily taking it in the appropriate context. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with a lot, with actually everything Councillor Davey said. We're in desperate times, and things are not getting better, they're getting worse. And we are gaining 26 affordable units and other much needed units. So I can't say no to affordable units. So I am in full support of what's being presented.
Are there any other comments? If not, I'll just make my own, and I have to be, sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Clancy. Go ahead, I'll wait.
Yeah, I just feel really conflicted. You know, it's really uncommon for our staff to not support something, because I think we are very progressive and very we do prioritize density, and so I take the comment of well-being very seriously when it comes to our tall building guideline, and I do agree with everything you're saying, Councillor Davey, where this crisis is important, and we have to think of the tenants of these units. I am also tasked with thinking of the people around those units and units to be built, and the term well-being is also really important to me. So just wanted to say that. You know, because I'm not a planner. I respect planning staff's expertise very much so, and it pains me to, you know, to have to juggle those two priorities.
Okay, thank you. Just in terms of my own comments, and I'll be frank, I too am struggling with this decision this evening, and I struggle with it because I'm needing to balance both the state of the situation around housing in our community and in this country right now, and also struggling to balance that with both the process as well as, you know, making sure that we're building a community that we can be proud of, not just today, but quite frankly, that, you know, 30, 40 years from now, if I'm still around, or as for those of you with kids and grandkids, as they look back, that they'll be proud of the decisions that this council made, while also dealing with the crisis in the community. I'll also say, and you know, Councillor Davey and I agree on 99% of things, I think. I will say, though, that you know, New York and Boston are two very different cities, and I'm proud that we're Kitchener, and I don't know that I want to be. I love New York, I love Boston. I don't necessarily want to have their skylines, or at least certainly not New York's, because I'll note that in Boston, in fact, the highest building is the John Hancock building, which is 60 stories. It's the tallest in Boston and New England, and the 80th tallest in the U.S., and the next tallest building is only 52 stories in Boston. But having said all that, For me, one of the compelling issues here this evening is the fact that the applicant that's before us has a track record of moving forward with their projects in a timely manner, and that is an important issue to me, particularly at a time when we've been meeting our targets. We've been more than meeting our targets in terms of what the province is looking from us in terms of planning approvals. But what we can't control is when people actually move forward with their projects and build. And I am, based on past experience and based on the comments made, I'm trusting that this building will move forward in the timely manner that's been indicated. And so I'm prepared to support the amendment this evening. But in doing so, I really want to reiterate a few points, and I'm glad, Mr. Litt, you made the comments you did at the beginning of this evening, because I am, appreciative of the fact that you're working with us and striving to find some solutions and trying to address issues around affordability. But as has been noted, the process has not been ideal. Going forward, if we're going to be true to the process, if we're going to be true to ensuring public trust in the process, it needs to be done differently, and we've said that as a council, we need to have that discussion and give direction to our staff for future applications. And the last point that I'll make is that I think if we're going to consider these kinds of things, I would encourage, whether it's Mr. Litt or any other applicant, quite frankly, to start their application process with affordable housing as part of that plan, so that it doesn't become a surprise later on, particularly as we work through these issues. So based on that, as I said, I will support it this evening, but I'm confident that we will work together towards a different process going forward. So with that, I'll deal with the amendment first. A recorded vote has been called. Oh, sorry, thank you. I need a seconder for the amendment. Councillor Ioannidis, thank you. So we'll vote on the amendment first. Recorded vote. Just hang on. Please vote. Oh, are we still on committee? We're still on committee, so you can vote yes for me over there. And Councillor Singh, how would you like to vote? Okay, thank you. No, that's okay. No worries. Okay. Oops. Let me bring that back on the screen. There we go. Thank you. The motion, the amendment carries. And now we'll vote on the motion as amended, and a recorded vote as well. Councillor Singh, how would you like to vote? Yes? Okay. And you can vote yes for me, Councillor Owadudi. I got no video present on mine. Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, and that is carried as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Litt. Okay, we'll now move to, there's no mayoral business or updates. We'll move on to the in-camera meeting authorization. Move that we go in camera for the six matters listed, including a personnel matter, 4 matters involving land acquisition or disposition, and a land disposition matter having confidential information. And I will deal with any conflicts now. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I may have some part of the conflict of that discussed item. So just in advance of it, that's item 2.5, potential land acquisition disposition related to a property owned by my family that may be close proximity to part of the discussion.
Okay. Motion to go in camera. Councillor Clancy, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Madam Clerk, can we recess? Sorry, do we need to recess or we need to come back? Okay, so based on that, motion to recess, Councillor Ioannidis, seconded by Councillor Waduni. All those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Thank you.